who will introduce our speaker. So Judy, go ahead and take it away.
Well, it seems like you have an audience of people who know you, Joyce.
Two people anyway, Marge and Beth.
And Marion also, I thought. Anyway, Joyce, I've known for over 20 years. Some of you can claim longer, but Joyce has a fantastic background. She taught teachers or student teachers for the deaf. She does great sign language teaching, which we're not going to do today. She belongs to CODA, Children of Deaf Adults, and is very, very active in that. Anything else, Joyce, that you'd like me to share that's important?
No, just that I taught at CSUN for many years. Yeah.
And I was one of those students, which is funny, but that's a joke. But anyway, yeah. I do hope you all really get to enjoy. I've heard this before, and I think it's important to hear again, and she will give you many tips that hopefully you can pass along to others besides you and your significant other. Thank you. Go for it, Joyce. I'm going to mute. And by the way, I'm going to request that instead of raising your hand, that you put your questions on the side, in the chat, and then we'll call on you or I'll read them to Joyce at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. Before I start, I wanted to let you know that Temple Judea was my temple. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay. Temple Judea was my temple when I was basically a teenager. I got active in the what we call the JTs, or the Judean teenagers. In fact, I was president one year, and I was confirmed at Temple Judea. And I wanted to share with you a photo of my confirmation class, a la 1956 or 55. This is Cantor Harvey Goldstein. This is Mrs. Greenberg, the wife of Ben Greenberg, who was the president at the time. Unfortunately, I can't remember her name. Larry Greenberg, Lori Ogina, Stuart Olesker, me, Rabbi Chomsky, and he was the president at that time, and I don't remember his name. Does anyone recognize any of the family names? No. Okay. I thought I would share that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and show you a PowerPoint presentation.
Joyce, everybody should put themselves on view, on speaker view.
Gallery view or?
No, speaker view. Then we could see you and whatever you're going to present.
Okay. All right. Now, how do I get to the PowerPoint presentation? Share.
Share screen.
Okay. I want to go to the beginning here. And I want to make this bigger.
Hit slideshow.
Right. Okay. So here we go. I am going to focus on communication. But I'm going to share a lot of other resources for you. And I have a handout, which I looked at to see if it needed updating, and it looks like it's fine. So I'm going to email it to Judy and to the rabbi and see that it gets out to everybody who's on today. I am not an audiologist. I grew up with two deaf parents. I'm the daughter of deaf people. And I grew up very aware of the importance of communication with people who can't hear. I have become hard of hearing. My hearing loss started when I was about 30, and it's gotten worse. I have a moderate to severe hearing loss. I wear 2 hearing aids. So I sympathize with any of you who also have a hearing challenge. I'm a teacher of the deaf. I taught K through 12 and then spent 30 years at CSUN training teachers of the deaf. Something that we need to realize is that if you have trouble, I'm going to read all my PowerPoint words because just in case anyone has trouble seeing them. If you have trouble seeing, you notice it. If you have trouble hearing, everyone else notices it. Oops, I didn't want that.
Using the PowerPoint seems to be taking up the entire screen and minimizing the photo of Joyce. Am I doing something wrong?
Well, go up to your upper right on your screen and click on gallery view. I get the gallery.
Excuse me, Joyce?
Yeah.
Joyce?
Yes.
It's either we see you or we see your screen. You have no other choice. So you're not going to see Joyce through this presentation.
Well, that makes it
Well,
very
she doesn't.
that makes it very difficult for people who rely on reading lips.
Okay. Let me see what I can do here.
I don't think the PowerPoint is nearly as important as our ability to see the speaker.
Is that better?
No, Joyce, we're not going to see you if we see the PowerPoint. The gentleman speaking is asking you for you to read the PowerPoint, but not have the PowerPoint up so he can read your lips.
Hold on one second. There is a way to see both.
Yes.
Larry, go to view, as Joyce said, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen.
Yeah.
And there is
Okay.
a way to choose side-by-side gallery. You will see the presentation and you will see Joyce. Her picture will be smaller, but you will be able to see both.
Actually, when I did that, it deleted the picture of Joyce. Oh,
So
that's
you may have to scroll through the gallery of pictures of participants until you get to Joyce.
Oh, no, I see it. All right.
You
I
need,
just want Joyce to know, which she may not realize, is that if she uses her PowerPoint, it will take up most of the screen and she will simply be in a very small box.
right,
I think it would be better to not use the PowerPoint.
Larry is Jerry Mund, okay? So if you use side-by-side speaker, you will
Yeah.
see her. Then if you there is a divider line, a vertical divider line that allows you to move so that the PowerPoint is
I see.
smaller.
Thanks,
Use
Jerry.
larger.
That helps.
Okay, well, you're used to listening to me. What the hell?
I always to you.
Take care.
It never works the other way around, but I
That's true.
okay, thank you.
Does that do it for you?
That helped me. I hope it will help somebody else because otherwise
Okay,
PowerPoint overpowers the presentation.
Yeah.
okay.
I agree with you and I understand it. It is important that you see me. Did you know about 31% of people over age 65 and 40 to 50% of people 75 and older have hearing loss? And what you don't hear may hurt you. Depression. Those with untreated hearing loss have significantly higher incidence of feelings of isolation and depression. Lifespan. Studies show older adults with untreated hearing impairment have a shorter lifespan than peers with hearing problems and can't read that, and don't wear hearing aids. Tinnitus. People with tinnitus have 90% of people who have tinnitus, that's buzzing or noises in your ear, also have a hearing loss. There is research. It shows that seniors with untreated hearing loss may be at increased risk for dementia. And that's because our brain has to work harder to understand if you are not using a hearing aid, which can be very helpful. And that came from studies done by Johns Hopkins and also by the National Institute on Aging. Columbia University found that there is a direct correlation between improved cognitive function and hearing aid use in older adults. This is how our brain works. We are linguistic beings, and we can make closure when things are missing. When we can't hear something, we sometimes can fill in what is missing. If you look at this example, what are these phrases? What is this phrase? When you figure out what that is, it's missing the vowels.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Okay. And this message serves to prove how our minds can do amazing things, impressive things. In the beginning, it was hard, but now on this line, your mind is reading it automatically without even thinking about it. Be proud, only certain people can read this. Here's another one to try. I'll give you a minute to look at it. Okay, according to research at an English university, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter are in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because we do not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole, and the brain figures it out anyway. So the point is, if you miss something that you didn't hear, you can use your brain to figure out what it was. The problem is that if we have to work too hard, we're using up our brain cells. And that's why it's important to try a hearing aid or something that will help fill in the gaps, so to speak. Here is an example of Queen Elizabeth, age 93, wearing a hearing aid in public early last year. These are various hearing aid devices that have been used over the years. This is like an ear horn that they stuck in the ear and held out toward the person speaking. They would wear the battery on their hip or their thigh because the battery was so large. And gradually, the size of hearing aids have come down to very small. They've been put in glasses. All kinds of technology is improving how hearing aids are made and what size they are. We also have the law on our side. The Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, of 1993 requires accommodations for individuals with hearing challenges. This means that I can go to a movie theater and ask for a device that will show me the closed captions of the movie. It means that hospitals and other places must provide captions on their television. They must provide a caption telephone if the person requests it. So we do have the law on our side in terms of accommodations. All televisions made since 1993 have built-in caption devices. Technology is moving fast. There are now hearing aids that come with rechargeable batteries, or the hearing aids themselves are rechargeable. So there are lots of things that that technology is bringing to us. Not only hearing aids, but you've all heard, I'm sure, about cochlear implants. Cochlear implants surgically implants electrodes in the inner ear, in the cochlea that looks like a snail. And it sends the signals up to the brain. And the receiver is implanted just behind the ear, between the skin of the scalp and the skull. It does not give you perfect hearing, but it does give you sound, and you have to practice listening to make sure you can understand what you hear. Amplified telephones are free from the phone company. Cell phones can be used to text other people or to see them and lip read if you use FaceTime, for example. There are doorbells and that flash lights in your home, portable door knockers that if someone knocks on the door, on the inside of the door, the light flashes. And many hotels have to have that according to the ADA for any deaf guests if they need a door knocker with a light. Alarm clocks. I have an alarm clock that vibrates. I put it under my pillow or next to me, and it vibrates to wake me up because I can't sleep with my hearing aids and I cannot hear the alarm go off. Caption television, caption movies. There are caption telephones free from the phone company. There are two on the market, CapTel or Caption Call, and they will caption whoever calls you, and you can speak to them. They will hear you, but you can hear them and read the captions at the same time. Video phones. You can get a video phone or use Skype, WhatsApp, or FaceTime, or other face-to-face communication so that you can lip read the caller. Video phones are distributed by companies that have contracts with the phone company, and they will give you a television, a regular television, and a separate phone number. And people that call you will call you can be routed to your video phone so that you will see someone using sign language or talking to you, and you can lip read them. There are speech to text apps on cell phones. One is called Ava, the other is called Otter. I have a funny story to tell you. At the high holidays 2 years ago, I was sitting with a friend while the rabbi was giving his sermon. And I looked over at a 90-year-old woman who I thought was playing a game on her cell phone. I nudged the woman next to me and I said, "Look, she's playing on her phone." So afterwards, I went up to her. she's a friend of mine. So I teased her and I said, Adele, you were playing on your phone when the rabbi was giving his sermon. And she said, no, I wasn't. I was reading his sermon on Otter. So the cell phone actually transcribed the rabbi's speech into text so that she could then read the sermon that way. I was a bit embarrassed. There are loop systems that some airports have, and temples and churches are being encouraged to get it. If you have been in the CSUN Soraya auditorium, they have it. Your hearing aid has to be compatible with a loop system. It's an FM system. You switch your hearing aid if you have one that will switch to a telephone setting, and it will automatically connect with the loop. You won't hear the person next to you eating popcorn, or somebody coughing, or somebody crumpling paper. You will hear what is being said over the microphone in the theater. But the theater has to install the loop system, or the temple has to install a loop system, whether it is permanent, where it is embedded in the ceiling, or a temporary portable loop system, which is put around a section of chairs that are on the floor, and people who have the compatible hearing aid can sit in that section and listen directly to the mic. So it offers a much clearer connection. There are some things available that are not technology. There are hearing ear dogs that are trained to signal you if someone rings the doorbell, if your tea kettle is boiling, if the phone rings, if there's noise, if you're walking down the street and someone says something behind you. These dogs are trained to let you know that it hears something, and it will come and get you if you are in the other room and let you know that there's something you need to pay attention to. And they even are trained to give you a different kind of signal if a fire alarm goes off, so that you know it's not the telephone. If the dog comes up to you and instead of pawing you or nudging you with its nose, if it lays down on the ground, that means that it's an emergency. So you can actually get these dogs. They're free. They're very, very expensive to train, and there's usually a waiting list. But you have to go to the place that trains them and practice with the dog before you can take the dog home. There are 3 different options. One is called Dogs for the Deaf. Another one is called Canine Companions for Independence. Or you can hire a private dog trainer to help you train a dog. Okay, what can make our life easier? There are resources to make life easier. There are very few speech reading or lip reading classes. These words mean the same thing, but we are really reading speech. We're not just reading the lips, but we're reading facial expression and other parts of our mouth. The only class I know of right now in lip reading is in the South Bay. I don't know of anything now in the Valley, but I think if there were enough of you, I think you'd have to have at least 15 people wanting a speech reading class. You could probably go to LA Unified and ask them to find a teacher to offer the class, for example, at Temple Judea. There are support groups The Hearing Loss Association of America has a chapter here in the Valley. It's the Hearing Loss Association of Los Angeles. The Hearing Loss Association of America, LA chapter, and they meet once a month. They were meeting in person, but now the meetings are virtual once a month. There's another group called ALDA, the Association of Late Deafened Adults. Late deafened means that you lost your hearing later in life. Here's the information about the Los Angeles chapter of Hearing Loss Association. They have guest speakers from hearing aid companies. They have audiologists. They've had Dogs for the Deaf speak. They've had meetings where people share their own strategies or share what is working within their own relationships. It's the third Saturday of the month from 10 to 11:30. And then there are many national conventions. HLAA has a national convention. ALDA has a national convention. And there are other groups like the, sorry, I lost this. The National Association of the Deaf has a convention also. Now they haven't been meeting because of COVID, but I'm hoping that in 2022 they will start meeting again. Okay, what can we do about communication? Make sure to get the person's attention that you want to talk to if that person doesn't hear you call them. Within the deaf community, it is acceptable to tap someone on the shoulder. There are parts of our body that we do not want other people to touch. So you're always safe tapping them on the shoulder or on the back. Do not speak from another room or with your back to the person.
That's for sure.
Another way to get someone's attention is to kind of wave at them or get close enough to their peripheral vision to wave at them and get their attention. You want to speak to them face to face. Now, where should the light be when you're talking to someone who's hard of hearing? Should the light be behind you or behind the hard of hearing person? If you go into a room and there's a window and you're with a hard of hearing person, who should sit with their back to the window? You or the hard of hearing person?
You.
You, right, because you want the light on your face. If the hard of hearing person sits opposite the window, they will have the glare of the window and it will be hard for them to lip read you because you will be in a shadow. If the person is not understanding you, you can repeat the sentence. And if they don't understand it, rephrase it. Use a different word. Let me give you an example. Growing up in my home with my deaf parents who lip read very well, if a neighbor came over and said, I want to let you know that my wife had surgery, I automatically looked at my parents and said, his wife had an operation. Now, why did I do that? Watch my mouth. Surgery, operation. Which word is easier to lip read?
Operation.
Operation. So if the person's not understanding you, rephrase it, change the words, find another way to say it that might be more easily understood. And avoid a noisy background. That's why restaurants are very difficult, because there's lots of noise. So try to avoid a noisy background. Turn the radio or the television down if you want to have a conversation. I have a friend that calls me all the time, and she has the TV news on all the time. And I have to tell her, Vicki, please turn off the sound on your TV. It's distracting me from hearing your voice. Okay, don't have food in your mouth when you're talking, or a cigarette in your mouth. Don't put your hand in front of your face like this when you're talking to someone. Don't chew gum. And we suggest that you not wear sunglasses if you're outside and you want to talk to someone who's hard of hearing, because that cuts down some of the facial information, facial expression that helps in communicating with someone who's hard of hearing. Even if they're not a first-class lip reader, we all depend on facial expression, and sunglasses cut down on that information. So do mustaches and heavy beards. Now, my father always had a mustache. In fact, when people said I look like him, he would say, oh no, Joyce doesn't have a mustache. But he always kept it well trimmed. And lipstick is also helpful. Sorry, Nan, but the women, if you wear lipstick that outlines your mouth, that seems to help people who depend on lip reading. Maintain eye contact. Don't look away. Eye contact is very important. And speak slowly and distinctly. Now, that doesn't mean speak like this, because the other person would fall asleep. But speak slowly and clearly so that they can catch the words. When you speak very fast, it's hard for the person to follow because their brain has to figure out what you are saying. And we need to give our brains time to do the work. You can always write something in the air. If you don't understand something I say, for example, let's take the word cake. Cake, C-A-K-E, is a little bit hard for some people to hear. It's hard for me to hear. You can always write the word C-A-K-E in the air. So if someone is not understanding you, write the word in the air, or text on a cell phone. Many of my deaf friends go into a restaurant or a fast food place and they text on their cell phone what they want to order and then show it to the person working there. If you want to learn some American Sign Language, there are many sign language classes here in the Valley, or use the manual alphabet, which is 26 letters of the alphabet, 26 hand shapes. For example, my name, Joyce, J-O-Y-C-E. So you can learn the 26 letters and spell words to each other, or be creative and make up signals. I know I have some deaf friends that when I went with them to an event, the husband came up to me and said, W-O-R, actually he fingerspelled W-O-R, and I didn't know what that, I'm sorry, W-A-R, war. And I didn't know what that meant. And he said, we are ready, W-A-R, we are ready to leave. So that was a made up signal that they used in their family. So you can make up signals with each other. there are computer applications that you can use if you have tinnitus, if you have buzzing or ringing in your ears. Starkey has something online called Relax, and it is helpful for people who have tinnitus because they hear, I don't know whether it's music or white noise, but they hear something that's very relaxing. Another app is called Hear Coach, and it is for listening practice. If you want to practice, let's say you get a new hearing aid and you want to practice listening, you go to Hear Coach and you practice listening, and you can improve your ability to listen. Some of this information will be on my handout. The local telephone company can give you information on the caption phone. Hearing aid dealers can give you information on that also. The Greater Los Angeles Agency on Deafness is located in Eagle Rock, and it gives out information and resources for anyone in the Los Angeles area. And there's also one in Ventura, if you happen to live in Ventura County. It's called Tri-County GLAD, and it serves Ventura, Oxnard in that area. The Hearing Loss Association of America has a monthly magazine or a quarterly magazine. The National Association of the Deaf also has information and legal advice. GLAD also has legal advice. And that's legal advice for someone who's hard of hearing or deaf who has a complaint about not getting accommodations, which we should be getting because of the law. If you're interested in devices, Whitebrecht Communication in Santa Monica has amplifiers, microphones, amplified telephones and things. Remember, you can get them free from the phone company, but some of the things like the door knockers, I don't know if the phone company provides that. You may have to get that from Whitebrecht or from Harris. Both of them have catalogs online. Harris has doorbells and alarm clocks and things like that. They have some very, very loud alarm clocks. They have some that flash lights, and they have some like mine that vibrate. And I always suggest that a little bit of humor helps. It's windy today. No, it's Thursday. So am I. Let's have a beer. This kid is saying to Grandma, "Can I borrow $10? Grandma says, "What did you say? Can I borrow $10, Grandma? I still can't hear you." And Grandpa says, "You must be going deaf. I can hear him perfectly." So Grandma says, "Then you lend him the $10. I'm going to close with a repeat of what I said in the beginning, because I think this is so important. The study at Johns Hopkins, a person with untreated hearing loss loses an additional 1.2 cubic centimeters of brain tissue every year. That's roughly the size of a sugar cube. So if you think you have a hearing loss and you don't wear a hearing aid, you might consider going to an audiologist. People always ask me, where can I buy a hearing aid? I can't really recommend any particular place. Many people tell me they're very happy with the hearing aids from Costco. I happen to go to a place called Sonus, S-O-N-U-S, Sonus. If you belong to Kaiser, Kaiser will refer you to a place. You must be tested before you buy a hearing aid unless you go order an inexpensive one through mail order. I don't really recommend that because if you buy from a reputable hearing aid dealer, the hearing aid can be adjusted according to your hearing loss. If you have trouble with the high frequencies, they can bring up the high frequencies. If it's the low frequencies, they can bring up the low frequencies. I think the ones you get through mail order might do something like that, but I would think something from an audiologist would be much more accurate, although it would be more expensive. If you have insurance, Medicare allows up to $1,000 for each ear toward a hearing aid. I think that's all I have. I will close my PowerPoint. And okay, and let's see. I'll go that gallery view so I can see all of you, and I will take questions if any of you have questions for me or comments.
Joyce, it's Sylvia.
Because I don't know who's talking. Yes, okay.
It's Sylvia Lezak. You said that Medicare allows $1,000 for hearing aids?
Let me interrupt you, Sylvia.
Please.
I need to depend on lip reading. And
Sure.
Hold your head up so I can see.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I believe I heard you say that Medicare allows $1,000 for. Do you have to have special hearing aid insurance?
It depends on your regular health insurance. I have Anthem Blue Cross.
Right.
Medicare allows Blue Cross to pay up to $1,000. It's not money for Medicare, but
right.
The insurance company has to follow what Medicare allows. And
okay.
Medicare allows $1,000. I really don't know how it works, but I know it's very helpful.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Jerry.
In their latest newsletter, they talked about that they have a hearing test online that you can take. I mean, I'm wearing hearing aids and I'm not going to do it, but I have friends that probably should do it. Do you know anything about that and the quality of that?
I don't know. I have tried some of those before. I didn't know that ARC had one, but I have tried some of those on the phone, and I'm just not sure how accurate they are because the telephone itself compresses the sound waves in order for us to hear it and in order for it to be carried on the telephone wires. And so I don't know whether that distorts the signal or not, but I suggest to people that if you suspect you have a hearing loss, maybe in one ear, pick up the phone and listen to the dial tone in one ear and then listen to it in the other ear and compare them and see if there's a difference. That can alert you to the fact that you may have a hearing problem in one ear. But I would say go ahead and try it. Marge.
Yeah, I put this in the chat box, Joyce. If loss is only in one ear, why do you need hearing aids in both ears? And I have the battery operated hearing aids in both ears.
For me, because I have a severe loss, if I only wear one hearing aid, I can't localize where the sound is coming from because I hear everything coming from this side. And if someone is talking to me over here, it's not helping me. So 2 hearing aids give me a little bit more hearing than 1 hearing aid, and it helps me localize sound. I wore 1 hearing aid for many, many, many years, but my hearing did get worse. And so I find that 2 is more helpful. The hearing aid dealers will always try to sell you 2. If you don't want to buy 2, suggest that you want to just try 1 and then see how you do. And then if you want the second one, you can always go back and buy the second one later.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments, concerns? Larry? Larry, you're muted. Yeah, unmute yourself.
This is actually a comment, although I could, did you know? No, and to a certain extent, this is for the benefit of Rabbi Blum, but I've tried to get Temple Judea to do this before. But there are services that you can subscribe to if you are the host that will caption your
Yes.
Zoom call. And I think it would be very, very helpful if these calls were captioned. So that's just a thought.
Thank you for that, Larry. I will make a note of that. This is actually the religious school account. So I don't know if that is a setting on this account, but I will pass that on to the powers
Just
that be.
so you know, yeah, I've brought this to their attention, and it may be expensive. I don't know. For an individual, it costs $15 a month to have a service called Rev, add captions to any call in which you are the host. So when I'm on a Zoom call, I always insist on being the host, and then everybody can get captions. So I think it would be useful, particularly given the demographics of the Temple membership, to add
Yes.
this to the Zoom service. But again,
Thank you. It's a wonderful
Well,
suggestion.
thank you for being so gracious about accepting it.
I agree with you. I know that Zoom does have captions. I haven't used it. I don't know how it works, but it is available as long as you have that
I
kind of.
don't know. This is a secondary service that we subscribe to called Rev, R-E-V, and it's remarkably accurate.
Good.
And it's interesting, I mean, if you want to talk about humor, what's interesting is it edits you. So if you use a word that it considers to be vulgar, it puts asterisks in the middle of it.
I love it.
Right. Okay, Jerry.
Okay, two things from my personal experience. One is that when I got my hearing aids, I paid, it was included in the cost, was for insurance, which covered it for 3 years. And at almost the end of 3 years, I was taking off my face mask and I flipped the hearing aid out. It's somewhere in my car. It has never been seen again. But the insurance, except for the deductible, which was minor compared to the cost of the hearing aid, covered it because it was within the 3 years. But I have learned, I now have, and I suggest to people to look, there are masks. This one is from Proper Cloth that goes over your head, not over your ears. Same thing. And this one I make myself that ties behind my head and my neck, which is what I use when I'm walking the dogs, because I can just pull it up with one hand because I've got a leash in the other hand. So those of you who wear hearing aids and you want to not worry about flipping one out when you take your mask off or down, you might want to find a mask that works that way.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that because I have one that ties behind my head also. That doesn't get caught on the hearing aids. But if I forget to take it with me, I've got a backup in the car that does go behind the ear. If you have that problem, just take off one side first and then loosen the other side before you take it off so that it doesn't pull the hearing aid out. I want to go back, Marge, to your question about if you do not benefit from a hearing aid in one ear. Let's say that you have one ear that is really profoundly deaf. You get a hearing aid for your good ear. It is helpful to get a hearing aid for the bad ear that only has a microphone and brings the sound around to the other side. And that helps you localize sound. So if something is noisy or talking to you over here, you will hear it. If you're deaf on that side, you won't hear anything. But bringing it around to the other side from that mic that's over here will bring the sound over to the other ear. Okay, Judy?
I was just thinking about the fact that a lot of the new hearing aids are attached to your cell phone, so you can control both sides.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. That means you must have your phone with you at all times. And for me, that doesn't work. I mean, I have a big house and I walk from one end to the other and I don't carry my cell phone with me. If the phone rings, I want to be able to answer it. Other questions or comments? Yes.
Hi.
Joe.
Yeah. I actually have taught classes on communicating with hard of hearing. I know nothing about deafness, but I've had a lot of experience with the hard of hearing. In fact, I started out with, you're talking about places to go, with the House Clinic, and old Dr. Howard House was my first audiologist, and he taught me about he taught me to get a hearing aid by trying out an ear horn, old-fashioned ear horn phone on me. What I wanted to tell you, one of these things you mentioned, and it's the most important thing that I learned. I took speech reading from a nun in Pasadena, and I think they still have classes. But the one thing she taught me, which has been the most helpful, not just for me, but the people trying to talk to me, is rephrase. If someone says something to you and you don't hear it the first time, okay, repeat it once, but don't yell. Obviously that person didn't hear it. Rephrase and they will hear it. The other thing that I think is important to know for people that are wearing hearing aids, to let others know, often someone says something to you, it takes a minute and they start to repeat themselves. We who wear hearing aids, I find, take longer to process. The words come in, but it takes a bit of time for it to process. And the one thing that I have tried to reassure people with over the years is, if you have a disability, if you're blind, if you're missing a limb, it's obvious and you have the empathy that people with you. However, people without realizing have absolutely no sympathy, or no empathy, not sympathy, empathy for hard of hearing. They'll either come back to never mind, it wasn't important. That has made me cry, because if it was important enough for you to say, it's important enough for me to hear. So again, I thoroughly enjoyed what you told us, and I learned a great deal from it. But there's so much we can learn from each other. And one of the things that has been so helpful to me is, often not too many people are capable of doing it, but I can be at a party or a lecture with a large number of people, and of course, all the noise, you don't hear anything. But if my friend turns to me and in 3 or 4 words says, they're talking about blah, 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 then I know what the conversation is and I can join in. But often the conversation starts and you don't hear the word or words that describe what you're talking about. Anyway, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this and it was very worthwhile.
Thank you, and I appreciate your comments. I think those are very good suggestions. I'm curious whether the lip reading teacher in Pasadena was Mrs. Barley.
I think her name was Sister Rhoda, but I'm not sure. But she taught us a great deal, and I've been able to impart. The other thing that I have had, and I don't even know if they have it, do you know what? It's the symphonics. Symphonics are like, for those who don't know, it's like a cochlear implant, but the cochlear is for people who are profoundly deaf. And the symphonics, I was in a study at the house clinic, and which unfortunately, I think they became too expensive. But it was actually, I had to have surgery to have it implanted in my skull behind my ear. And then you didn't need a hearing aid. You had a thing that you put on top of it with a magnet and frequently knocked off. Anyway, thank you again.
Did you, that is a cochlear implant, the symphonic. Do you still have it?
Symphonics is like it, but it's for people with hearing loss, not who are profoundly deaf.
Okay.
So it just replaces the hearing aid, and it works well. But as I say, first of all, it turned out to be very, very expensive, and they felt, at least the house clinic or the manufacturer gave up on it. But I understand, I spoke to someone at the house clinic today. They do have something called BAMA. Are you familiar with that?
I think so. That's
But it's, again, it's an implant, a similar type of thing.
Right, yeah. Thank you. Judy.
I was just thinking about the fact that I used to play this game with kids in speech therapy with a mirror, and they would have to, and I never know whether people understand MIRROR because I'm a New Yorker, but they would have to look at each sound that they made in the mirror to see whether they could see it being made. So like the and the duh, people didn't realize that one was a K and one was a G. And that might be good for people who are not hard of hearing, who deal with people or have conversations with people. Just a thought, you can have a fun time with it.
Yeah, it's good for hard of hearing people too, because they can practice lip reading the sounds that look the same in the context of a word.
And by the way, Joyce's father told me I didn't need to know sign language because he could read my lips.
You are easy to lip read.
Joyce, one other thing that I found very helpful for people who are trying to communicate with hearing impaired is if you try, they don't understand a word and they may say, spell it out. And a lot of people try to get creative with it. Don't be creative. Say A is for apple, B is for boy, D is for dog, instead of like S is for scintilla. Well, I can't hear that.
Right. Good suggestion. Anything else? Yes.
Sylvia.
Sylvia. Oh,
She's
Sylvia.
muted.
Muted.
No, no.
Okay. No,
Well, you could read her lips, Joyce. We can't hear you.
yeah. You're muted. You're muted, Sylvia.
I'm sorry, I thought I had unmuted myself. In any case, for the steering committee, I would like us to investigate that business that Larry talked to us about, captioning. I think that, and we ought to pursue that with the synagogue as well, because I think that the synagogue could do that. There must be a rate better than $15 for a synagogue. And nonetheless, I think that we're worth it.
I think that's a great idea for things on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
When you resume in-person services, there are ways to caption what goes on. In fact, at the meetings of the Hearing Loss Association, they have a captionist there who is typing on a computer what he or she hears, and those captions go up on a big screen in the front, mm-hmm. so that everybody in the room can read the captions. Now, that does cost money. However, I think if Temple Judea, for example, wanted to do it for 1 or 2 services a month, you might be able to talk to one of the captioning companies and see if they would donate one time a month a captionist, or provide a student captionist who's learning and needs to practice to do that, and save a little bit of money and still have captions on a big screen. You would need a movie screen or something up at the front or on the side where the people who are dependent on reading the captions could use.
That's a great suggestion. We'll discuss it as a committee. I've been tinkering around trying to figure out if I could turn it on now on our meeting, but I can't find a way to do it. But we will investigate that. And Sylvia and Judy, let's talk about that and ways to make it happen.
Maybe Larry could, maybe we could invite Larry to a steering committee meeting like on a Thursday, and he could tell us more about that.
Sure, let's add it to an agenda and we'll discuss.
And I will try to find out, because I gather that there is something like Zoom that is a service provided by Google that I think, I could be wrong, I just have an idea in my mind that Google, as one of its products, automatically provides captioning.
Yes.
In the same way that the cable companies automatically provide captioning. Zoom does not, to the best of my knowledge. Zoom does not have that technology. It's a secondary, you have to subscribe to a secondary service if you're using Zoom, as far as I know. But I'll try to figure it out, because I've been pushing this idea, so I'll keep pushing.
Thanks, Larry.
For listening.
I just wanted to say before we close, Judy, then I'll turn it to you to close us out. But there have been a few people who have logged off, but who have thanked you, Joyce, for the information and the presentation. So it is after 5 o'clock, so I do want to close us out. Joyce, if anyone would like your contact information, is it all right to